Now, I grew up at the end of the Cold War, which was essentially America and its allies had half of the world, and the Soviet Union and its allies had the other half. Both countries had massive nuclear arsenals, and for 50 years stood toe-to-toe on the brink of all-out war. The only thing that really held them back was MAD, otherwise known as mutually assured destruction. Quite simply put, if one side launches an attack, so does the other, and the final result is we all die. End of story. And because the end of the world was such a good deterrent, the Cold War ended peacefully in 1991. However, the lunacy of mutually assured destruction didn't go away at all. It just relocated.
The most dangerous place in the world today, I think you could argue, is the Indian subcontinent and the line of control in Kashmir.
Now, Kashmir has been in the news a lot lately with escalating tensions between India and Pakistan. So we went to Kashmir's line of control to see just how bad this conflict is getting.
Of war between India and Pakistan.
India cannot attack us because of the bomb.
Everyone is always talking about Pakistan's nuclear capabilities and everyone is terrified by them. But we also have nuclear capability.
That must not happen because the alternative is a subcontinent that no longer exists.
India and Pakistan really, really hate each other. Now, this antagonism started when Mahatma Gandhi finally succeeded in gaining independence from Great Britain. And in the ensuing chaos of building a new state, India's Muslims insisted on creating their own country. As a consequence, millions of Hindus and Sikhs fled to India, and simultaneously, millions of India's Muslims migrated to the newly created Pakistan. Now, during this partition, tens of millions of people were relocated. And in the process, over 1 million people on both sides of the migration were murdered in brutal religious violence. India and Pakistan have been fighting ever since. The flashpoint of this lingering conflict is Kashmir, a mostly Muslim region that is partially occupied by the Indian state. And you don't have to be in Kashmir long to realize that emotions are running extremely high, as was explained to us by a Kashmiri political leader, Saeed Ali Shah Gilani.
I will tell you without any hesitation that we are facing the worst kind of state terrorism under the occupation of Indian forces. And the killing by the police and by the communal forces is a continuous process. This is all consequences of forcible occupation.
We wanted to talk to these Pol Mil forces, so we went north to the highly militarized area closer to the border.
This is one of the main entrances from Pakistan into India. It's one of the most heavily militarized zones in all of India.
Because of the geographical feature
Right.
and the demographics of the area,
Right.
they have found a very soft corner here and a right conducive environment for their flourishing.
The reason why this is such a militant superhighway is because A, it's so close to Pakistan, B, the terrain makes it almost impossible to police, and C, because Pakistan continues to train militants and sneak them into India with the sole intent to destabilize the region.
So the line of control is not the border.
It's not a border.
No.
It's a temporary arrangement between India and Pakistan.
So if they get through the line of control, then you have to catch them.
When they hit the hinterland, then it becomes our job eliminating the terrorists.
And who's training them?
Reportedly, ISI and the Pakistan Army.
So the Pakistan Army and the ISI are training insurgents and then sneaking them into India to create unrest, terrorism.
Unrest and carry on insurgency.
India has good reason to fear these Pakistani-based terrorists, because in 2008 they attacked Mumbai and killed 106 people, wounded hundreds more, and held the city hostage for more than 60 hours. Indians refer to it as their 9/11. Now, our 9/11 got us so riled up that we invaded both Iraq and Afghanistan, starting 2 brutal and bloody wars. The reaction in India was nearly as intense and very, very anti-Pakistan, with tens of thousands taking to the streets calling for all-out war. Remarkably, the Indian government showed restraint and did not attack Pakistan in retaliation. But tensions between the two countries remain severely strained, as was explained to us by a leading Indian defense expert, Ajay Sani.
Pakistan continues to be the principal supporter of a range of terrorist organizations mobilized on the basis of an Islamist extremist ideology.
And the fact that it is backed by the state apparatus of Pakistan is what makes it so dangerous for India. Now, technically, Kashmir falls into the legal claim for India. It is challenged on the basis of a majoritarian principle by Pakistan, saying that this is a Muslim majority state and that Muslims cannot live with other communities.
I love my country, I love my country, and I'm proud of it, and I'm proud of it.
I don't think India-Pakistan relations have any future. I think this enmity is and will remain irreducible until Pakistan undergoes a complete cultural transformation, and I do not believe that there is anything within the dynamics of Pakistan that can facilitate such a transformation.
So we're going up into the Himalayas now. This road leads to the LOC, the line of control. It's a very hot zone, and we're hoping someone doesn't lob a grenade into our open jeepney here.
And actually, as I was stupidly making jokes about someone throwing grenades at us, a real terrorist threat was detected, and counter-terrorist procedures were immediately implemented.
We have got information regarding presence of some militants here. So we cover all the areas from where we can possibly draw some fire. Aye, let's go.
Let's go. So there's a lot of terrorists coming.
Exactly. It is the main infiltration route. As you can see, the terrain is unmanageable.
Right.
Very steep slopes,
Yeah.
very dense forest. And they make use of this geography and they sneak in from here.
How do they get across?
I think it's sheer motivation on their part and the brainwashing that is done in the camps.
After we were given the all clear, we continued on our way to the Indian side of the line of control.
Assalamu alaikum. How are you? Over there is Pakistan. This is the line of control. We're going over to the bridge. We had to take off our military gear because it's seen as an insult. There's rangers over there, trained. They said, if you go out onto the bridge and you go one step too far, they'll shoot you.
Now, to us, it seemed all very quiet and peaceful for supposedly the most heavy place on Earth. But then our Indian guards pointed out all the bunkers and positions that the Pakistani Rangers had set up on the mountains. And we were like, oh. So there's bunkers all over there.
At 12 o'clock,
Oh, I see there, yeah. They have guns.
they got everything.
So this is the zero line right here, in between India and Pakistan. If I go on that side, I can say goodbye to my toes. I'm not gonna go on that side. You wouldn't think it's one of the most dangerous borders in the world because when you look up, it's just shockingly beautiful.
So, India has nearly 1 million troops in Kashmir and a massive nuclear arsenal pointed at Pakistan. And after the Mumbai attacks, have vowed quite publicly, never again. But the ISI and the Pakistani army keep sending insurgents across the border with the sole purpose of causing chaos within India, and they send them almost every day. Now, this constant badgering seems insane. So we went to Pakistan to see firsthand why they seem so hell-bent on continuing this conflict. The first person we talked to when we arrived was Dr. Pervez Hoodboy, a leading nuclear scientist, and what he told us didn't make us feel any better. You have Pakistan openly training and sending in militants into Kashmir, and you have the Indians who, if they suffer another Mumbai, saying, we don't know if we can hold back. What do you think about that?
Well, what you're saying is a doomsday scenario
Yeah.
that, okay, nuclear weapons then come into play. But let me say that the Indian establishment does realize that a war with Pakistan this time would be devastating. It would be fatal.
Catastrophic.
For both countries.
Which brings us to the growing radicalization within Pakistan.
There is still a lot of anti-Indian feeling within the Pakistani military. It's seen as something that's very unifying. So the radicals and the ordinary officers and men, they are united in this, that yes, India is our enemy. Until we get out of this, is going to get worse. Most countries of the world have armies. Pakistan has an army that has a country, and it is now in terrible trouble. It is being attacked by the jihadis, which it helped create. The general headquarters of the Pakistan army has been attacked 3 ISI centers have been blown up by suicide bombers, and this was done using insider information. So radicalization is now eating into its very marrow.
According to Dr. Hoodboy, what is even more troubling than the radicalization within the army is that the Pakistani state is actually losing control over huge swaths of its own territory. He recommended we go to some of these areas to see for ourselves just how bad things have gotten. So we headed to Northwest Frontier Province, the home of the Pakistani Taliban.
So we're leaving the Bajra Fort now, which used to be in 2008 the only part of the whole area that the Pakistani army controlled, just the fort.
Now, just to be clear, when we say the Pakistani army only controlled the fort, that means that the rest of the province was controlled by the Taliban.
There's machine gunners on every building along our route, which makes me a bit worried that they say that everything's under control.
This was the hub of terrorist Taliban.
Right.
They were living over there, and they were dominating this entire village.
They would be training here, and then if anything happened, they could hide in the caves.
That's right.
So we're going to go in the caves now.
Oh, Jesus. Can you see very small entrance? It is by design.
But so they dug these caves?
Yes, they dug these caves.
That's a lot of work.
Yes, there was a lot of work.
And how many cave complexes like this are there?
Dozens of such complexes exist.
It's like when they used to say in America that they couldn't find Osama bin Laden because he was in caves.
Maybe.
We didn't understand what caves. How
Now you might have understood.
Because for us, a cave is like, with a bear in it.
Tunnel, sort of a tunnel.
But these are tunnels and whole complexes.
Yeah, well knitted together.
Well knit together, yeah.
Now, the Taliban have been operating in Pakistan for quite some time. In fact, the quote-unquote father of the Taliban is actually a Pakistani general named Hamid Gul, who was once head of the ISI, which is kind of like the FBI, the CIA, and the NSA all rolled into one, which made him at one point one of the most powerful men in Pakistan. Now, his views on the radicalization of the army were quite unexpected, as he quickly brought all of these seemingly internal problems right back to the conflict with India.
The army is being pushed around, and it is losing its direction. America is forcing us to shift our forces from the eastern border to the western border. It's called reversing the front. That there is the enemy, but you reverse your front.
So there is the enemy, India, but we're reversing to our friend, which is Afghanistan.
The front towards Afghanistan.
Yeah. You've been called the father of the Taliban because you helped set up the jihadis who would fight against the Soviets.
But of course, the jihadis, I supported them. Osama bin Laden was a very sort of a genial kind of a man, a bit shy. Intelligence oozed out of his eyes, flashing black eyes, just oozed out of his eyes.
After the Mumbai attack, there was such a huge sort of nationalistic outpouring in India. Aren't you worried that if you keep sending militants into Kashmir or something, that there'll be another attack?
Kashmir is a festering sore for us. Since 1971, there were several occasions when there was a cause for war, but they didn't do this because they know what will be the price.
What will be the price?
They can't attack us because we are nuclear.
Yeah.
And they can't attack us because we are imbued with the spirit of jihad, which has defeated 2 superpowers in our neighborhood. And without settling the Kashmir dispute, the peace cannot return to subcontinent, India or Pakistan. So I think Indians must come to their senses. They are not understanding the course of history.
After talking to General Gul, we thought things in Kashmir were bad enough. But recently, a new wrinkle has surfaced in this ongoing conflict. That new wrinkle is water.
आज भारत ने जितना कब्जा कर लिया है, पाकिस्तानियों मजहब के साथ बगैर तो तैयार रहो, भारत 2 काम करेगा। एक, पानी का बम इस्तेमाल कर रहा है, अगर पानी का बम इस्तेमाल ना किया तो पानी का बैंक इस्तेमाल करेगा। लानत है ऐसे लोगों पर जो ऑब्जर्व कर रहे हैं।
If Kashmir is a majority of Pakistan's water, if Kashmir is the majority of India's water, it's already highly politicized. It's the most militarized area in the world. What are your thoughts on that?
Look, this country was 27 million when it came into existence in 1947. Today, it is almost 200 million. It's leading to water becoming a very scarce resource. And these are the things that we really have to be afraid of.
You have this sort of political perfect storm of Pakistan radicalizing and then India at the same time sort of hardening up.
We might be able to get some kind of a handle on our disputes. What is something that you need and something we need? And so let's figure out a decent way of doing this without going to war.
Nobody is going to give away a piece of land and a people just because somebody else asks for it.
Like, what is the worst case scenario? What happens, you know?
Well, the worst case scenario is what Carl Sagan told us a long time ago. The planet will no longer be blue anymore.
Do you think that Pakistan is in a state of denial?
Oh yes, most certainly it's in a state of denial, and there is absolutely no guarantee that it will come out of this. If one had been used, then you could bet that all of them would be used.
If there is an attack, I have no doubt in my mind there would have to be nuclear retaliation. Everyone seems to think that it's more a question of when, not of whether.
India and Pakistan have hundreds of warheads pointing at each other, and things just seem to be going from bad to worse. Now, the problem with this is that if India and Pakistan go to war, it doesn't just mean the destruction of the subcontinent, because leading atomic experts have categorically stated that if over 100 warheads are detonated anywhere on Earth, it means the destruction of the world as we know it.
Zambo, 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 zambo. Jugga 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 zambo, zambo, jugga jugga zambo, zambo. Jugga 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 zambo, zambo, jugga jugga zambo, zambo. Jugga 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 zambo, zambo, jugga jugga zambo, zambo. Jugga 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 zambo, zambo, jugga jugga zambo, zambo.